Caleb from Brownells here, and in today's video we're going to be going over Gunsmith files. So the point of this is I'm just going to tell you almost everything you need to know about Gunsmith files so you can kind of get started in actually using them, figure out which one you need, which one's best for you, if you need to buy all of them, if you need to buy a few, and that really depends on the type of work you're doing. So let's just kind of jump right into it and talk about the files. So whenever we get into files, the most common ones you'll see are probably these larger ones here. Quite honestly, I don't use these a lot for gunsmithing, but they do have their use cases. So these three over here, all the way on my left, these are just basic hand files here. And then as you can see, they have a bunch of different shapes. You have round files, you have triangular files. I'll show you those in just a minute here. I'll pick them up so you can see them a little closer. We have square files. We have what's called half round, and then tapered. And a lot of these here, even though they look square, they are actually tapered, which means they're thicker in the back and thinner in the front. Now, a lot of different files, like if you go to Walmart and just buy like a pack of like automotive files or whatever, you're in the automotive section, they got a bunch of files. I don't know what's going on over there, but they're typically all pretty darn coarse. And I will say this, a cheap file will wear out super fast. So you want to make sure you're buying a quality file because the money you spend on just buying a good file, if you're using files a lot, like doing something like gunsmithing, you will save money really quick. Like I want to say in the long run, but not even that long because those cheaper files just wear out so darn quick. And another thing is with that cheaper steel, pieces get stuck in the file teeth and then you end up marring your surface and you get uneven cuts and different things like that. You can get that with any file, but the cheaper ones are more prone to it. Now, with that, these three over here on my left are what's called American pattern files. So there's three coarsenesses whenever we talk about American cutting patterns. And then there's also single cut and double cut. So all three of these are going to be what's called double cut. And as you can see here, I'm going to use the more coarse one here so you can kind of see. Double cut means that the teeth are cut going this direction and then also at an opposing angle. So it creates these, like, rather than having teeth that are just a channel, you end up having these pointed teeth. And these, they do mar your work surface a little more. They're a little bit of a rougher cut, but they remove material a lot faster. So those are great for that. If you need to remove a lot of material, you can start with one of these and then work your way down as far as like how fine they are go. And when we're dealing with American pattern, I said there were three different types of cuts. Your most fine cut is actually, or the one that cuts the most smooth, I should say, is easy to remember because it's literally just called smooth. And you can see it's not nearly as coarse. And then moving up, if you want to cut a little bit faster, you have what's called second cut. This one is clearly a little bit more coarse. And then moving up from there, you have what's called bastard cut. And this thing will remove material really quick. So those are the three types of American patterns there. And then we get into what's called Swiss patterns. Now those, even the Swiss most coarse cut is typically even more smooth than your American smooth. So that rating goes from 00 all the way down to 6. And your double lot is going to be your most coarse, and your number 6 is going to be your most smooth. And you're probably not really often going to see anything past 3 or 4, just because, and gunsmithing, we don't use that a whole lot, but jewelers and different things like that will typically use a full range of those. And then you also have needle files, which are just really small files. I don't have a set here to work with, but those work great too. You can even get those like coated in diamond, and they don't cut fast, but if you need to deburr something or remove a little bit of material, those are great. But as I said, these are the ones I use the most. Now, the round files, I use these quite a bit. These work great. If you need to enlarge a hole in something or just cut like a rounded groove in something, a round file is great for that. And I'll show you how to actually use a file here in a second. And square files, kind of the same thing. If you need to open up a square slot, these are great for that. And this one has a safety edge. So what that means is, like, this side right here has no teeth on it. And then the side directly parallel to that also has no teeth on it. But then these two sides here do have teeth. I think this is a number 2, if I remember correctly. Or this might actually, no, that's way finer. This looks like about a number 4 Swiss pattern. And you can see, I mean, you can't even really see the teeth on that. And this one is also, happens to be a double cut. All right. So we have our squares, and then we have our rounds. Our rounds are actually not a double cut. So you just have grooves going all the way around. And it's just a standard single cut. But these are pretty coarse, and they remove material pretty darn quick. All right, and then moving on from there, we have this guy. This one is a Swiss number 2, but it's larger, so it looks a lot more coarse. But it's actually not. It's pretty smooth. Also a double cut. I'll set that over there with the other ones. And then the ones I use the most are these two right here. So this is a Swiss 0 and a number 2. So I use the 0 quite a bit because it's a little more coarse, but it's a nice small tapered file. I can use this thing for just about everything. And then I usually start with this, and then I finish with the number 2. And the number 2 will get out most of my cut marks from that 0. And that's good from there. If I need it to be smoother, typically I'll just jump from a number 2 to a stone, like an India stone or something like that. And then you have this triangular file. So this one right here is a 60-degree file, and it's a Swiss pattern number 2. You can also get this one in a more coarse, like a 0. But you can use this for cleaning up dovetails on handgun slides. So a very useful tool for that. And then that's, oh, also we didn't go over this here. So this is I use this one quite a bit for woodworking. You can see the wood stuck in there. But this side right here is what's called a rasp. And it's basically just raised teeth in the steel. And it's not really the greatest thing for using on steel. You can use it for aluminum, but I use it mostly on wood because it tears the wood right off of there when I need it to. And then same thing with the other side. This side is not technically a rasp. It's more, I guess the pattern to this would be closer to like a bastard file. But this works really well. And it's a half round, so this side is completely flat, and this side is round. So a lot of uses here. If I'm doing something flat, obviously I use the flat edge if I want to maintain something flat. If I'm doing something contoured, I'll use the round edge and just kind of work the contour with it. And that works really well. Now, with this, I'm like notoriously bad at just not using handles on my files because I pick up the file and I use it. Or I'll like put a rag in my hand and use it if I need to. But there are really good file handles out there. And like this one right here, you literally just take the file. See if I can get it in here. This one's too tight. Let me open it up. This one's adjustable, so you can use it with a wide variety of different files. But it literally just goes in there, clamps down. You tighten the end, and then you can use it to work on whatever you need. All right, and then from there, some accessories to go with the files. I think I pretty much covered almost everything you need to know about that type of stuff. So with that, the harder the steel, usually the finer the file works a little bit better. In most cases, it really depends on what you're working on. But with that being said, if you just need to remove a bunch of material quick, use one of the more coarser files. If you're working on something a little finer, like redoing a screw head or something like that, I would stick with like a number 2. It'll take you a little longer, but your work will be a lot cleaner. So with that, you don't want your work to look rushed, right? So just take care, use the files in the correct order, and practice makes perfect. Filing isn't something you can just pick up and like something you learn overnight. You got to practice with a file to get good at it. A lot of gunsmithing schools will actually make you file a square piece of steel, and they will check to make sure it is perfectly square, just to teach that technique, because there is a lot of technique to it. But some accessories that go with files. Now, as I mentioned, stuff can get stuck in the teeth of your file, like the stuff you're removing. So let's say I'm, working on I have a workpiece I'm going after, and my file's getting clogged up, and now instead of the surface like being smooth, what's going on is that stuff getting stuck in the teeth is digging into it, and it's pushing my file kind of in a different direction. It's cutting low spots in a certain spot, so you got to make sure you keep your file teeth clean. So we have what's called a file card. So every few minutes when I'm filing something, I'll pull it off the workpiece and I'll hit it with the file card. Now this one has steel bristles in it, and then it has just like standard, like, was that some kind of nylon brush? On the files that are more fine, you'll want to use that nylon side and get everything out of there. On your more coarse files, the steel part of your file card works great for getting all that stuff out of there. Now, there are some preventive measures to take, and some people love doing this, some people hate it. I personally like it because I know it works. But that is chalking your files. So Brownells makes this file chalk, and all you do, you can see I've used this one quite a bit already. All you do is you take your file, you run it through your chalk, and what this does is help prevent, whatever metal you're cutting, whether it be steel or aluminum, from getting stuck in the teeth. Now, you still have to use your file card to get the stuff out. This doesn't, prevent you from having to use this. It just lets you cut for longer before you have to clear out the teeth. But every time I clear out the teeth, I'll usually just re-chalk it real quick and then go back to work. And that's how you use file chalk. So, really useful tool. You'll see this stuff in pretty much every major gunsmith shop, or just anyone who's serious about gunsmithing will have a bunch of different files and a bunch of different ways to take care of them. Now, whenever you're actually filing, let's talk about technique for a little bit. So I have my Brownells vise here. I'll just slide it on over. I'll actually put it about right here. And I'll turn my jaws so you can see a little bit here. All right. So positioning your vise is also important. It's kind of like if any of you out there do blacksmithing, it's kind of like setting up your anvil. Same kind of premise. What you want is your vise, the top of your vise, to be pretty much level with your elbow when you have your arm bent, okay? Same thing like when you're blacksmithing, so when you're hammering, but you want it to be like this because it makes things a lot easier. So let me put a workpiece in here and I'll show you what I mean. And this is just a AR-15 front sight gas block. We'll cut on this for a little bit, and that looks good right there. We'll just find a spots of file on it. So we'll secure that workpiece, and you need to have a good way to secure your workpiece. And then from here, with that, let me just grab one of my files. Let's see, where's my number 2? This is my number 2. I'll chalk my number 2. All right, and then from here, notice how it's my arm naturally forms a straight line with my workpiece. So that will help me stay way more level when I'm filing. So if my vise is too low, I end up kind of wanting to gravitate this way, and even though I'm not trying to, I'll end up with a high spot on my workpiece towards the back if my vise is too low. If my vise is too high, I end up with the opposite. I'll kind of want to naturally, as I push my arm forward, I'll kind of naturally want to glide up because it's too high, and I'll end up with a high spot on the opposite side of my workpiece. So having your vise set up is really important. And when you're filing, what I like to do here is I'll start with my workpiece, I'll push forward, and as I push forward, notice I'm sliding my file kind of this way, right? Because let's say I'm trying to make this surface flat. I'll start on this end and glide my file to the opposite end. So it should look, let me move my hand so you can see. but it should look something just like that. And I'll push forward, and then I'll lift up, and then push forward again. Now, will the file cut going back? Yes, but it doesn't cut nearly as well as it does going forward. And also, if you just go forward, it'll extend the life of your file. So, go forward, and if you want, you can kind of drag back across the workpiece. As long as you're not putting a lot of pressure, it's fine. But I just go ahead and lift it up and reset, so I kind of get into the rhythm of it. And do it just like that. And then there's also, that's one type of filing. That's the main type of filing, I should say. And then you also have what's called draw filing. And draw filing is really useful. You can use it on something like this, but like if you're trying to remove pits from like a firearm receiver that's flat, or even like a round barrel, draw filing works really well. And what you do is you just take a file. We'll use this, let's use a double cut, or second cut, excuse me. And we'll just chalk it up. And to draw a file, you simply grab each side of it and you draw back or you push forward, either way. But you're using this side of it, just like that, or you can pull back towards you, whichever. I typically, it depends on the workpiece you're working on, but I find it, typically more natural to kind of push forward. But that works really well also, depending on, which one you use depends on, what you're working on and what you're trying to accomplish. And then there's also lathe filing. Lathe filing is really useful. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's whenever you have something in a lathe turning and you file it. So for all intents and purposes, let's say this is my lathe and I have my workpiece in here and it's turning. What you want to do is just run your file across that workpiece. The important thing to remember here is to never stop with your file on the workpiece. Just always keep your file moving when you're lathe filing. And if you don't have a lathe, you don't need to worry about that. You'll just be using the other two types of filing. But that's pretty much all there is to it. That's the quick rundown on Gunsmith files and how to use them. So if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to post them down below. And if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell for more content just like this. And with that being said, if you need help with anything for any reason ever, feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.